Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to TED Talk, where we will deep dive into the dynamic world of educational technology, course design, and feature faculty insights in higher education. I am your guest host today, Sharilyn Owens. I'm the Dean for Transformative Learning, and in this episode, we are joined by Dr. Stacy Waters-Bailey, Vice President for the Transfer Excellence and Success Division. This is a season in the new year where a lot of people are excited about having kind of a reset. And maybe you are someone who likes to set New Year's resolutions and have a fresh start with something or set new goals. So this is a great time to talk about goal setting and ways that maybe we can sustain those and have something that's meaningful and not that kind of resolution that goes away by January 15th or whatever. So this is a good time to have that talk about goal setting, and I'm very grateful for the way Forsyth Tech for how we recently began to do our goal setting and our check-ins to help with that. I'm also very excited to have my own supervisor today who helps me with setting meaningful goals and graciously helps check in along the way until those goals have come to fruition. So welcome, Dr. Stacy Waters-Bailey, and would you like to just briefly introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me, Sharilyn. I'm excited to be here as we are in that season of being or thinking about what our year is going to look like and setting those goals. And so I'm excited to share my thoughts and ideas on it. As you said, I am Stacy Waters-Bailey. I'm the VP for Transfer Excellence and Success. And so I have a large team under me that helps frame the goals for the entire division, which then filters down into our students and our student success and the success of our community and our industry partners, and creates just a community that we're all excited to live in and thrive in. So thank you for having me today.
Yes, and thank you for joining us in that kind of shared governance that you alluded to, where we all participate in the goal setting is truly meaningful and impactful, and I believe a way to help us be able to meet those goals instead of just being, assigned goals. So on that note, just a few questions to get us started. So what are your thoughts on goal setting or maybe setting a New Year's resolution? Like, do you regularly set one?
Though I do not set a New Year's resolution, but I will say goals are very much so part of me. I'm a planner by just who I am. I love to plan. So that in itself lends it to always having goals because I'm always focusing on what it is I want to reach, the outcome I'm hoping to get to. And so I have like goals all the time. I have short-term goals. I have sticky notes with lists on them of the goals of things I want to accomplish on that day or that week. I have long-term goals, things I would like to reach. So I'm very much a goal person. I'm setting goals. I'm trying to reach those goals. So in some ways, goal setting is a little bit like my Disneyland. Like I've everything for me is set in a goal because there's always an outcome that I'm looking to reach.
All right. Yes, very great. Having that just kind of way of being. And so in your opinion, then what role does goal setting play in overall success?
I think really what goals can do from an overarching standpoint is provide you clarity of purpose. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? Where are you going? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And I think that clarity of purpose is really important to get to whatever it is. If it's a personal goal, maybe it's to eat healthier. Maybe it's a work goal of I want to, increase student success in my course. It depends on your goal, but at the end, you've got to have really your clarity of purpose. The goal really has to go to your why. And I think that's one of the key things to even being successful in your goal is connecting it to your why. Because if you understand why you're doing something and you have that intrinsic motivation, you're much more likely to even achieve your goals. I think it helps define your priorities. If you know where you're going or where you would like to end up, then you can figure out what needs to be the priority and what doesn't need to be the priority. And I think that can help tamper down the distractions sometimes. Sometimes things bubble up and you're trying to decide what's the priority and make sure you kind of don't get sidetracked by the distraction. Know what it is, but still keep your eye on where you're going. Um, and I think long term and even short term, it really connects to the vision. And it's, your vision, the college vision. It depends on the goal you're setting for yourself. But I think that vision helps you know where you're going. It's a clear path. It's where you're going, how you're going to get there, and the steps you need to take along the way. If you just want to do a simple goal for your own self, like healthy eating in 2025, some of that will be, going to the grocery store and reading the labels and maybe food prepping and meal prepping and things like that. So, I think, you have to have the vision of how you're going to get there. And there's small steps you got to take along the way. I think, in my opinion, and especially for me personally, goal setting is the fundamental element of success. So for me, that's I think how you become successful. It's how I have been able to accomplish things. It's just having that fundamental element of what are you doing, why you're doing it, where and how we're going to get there, where we're going. And I think if you bring it all together, it really helps you have a direction moving forward. And whether it's a short-term goal or even a long-term goal, it really can make things more clear and help you get there faster.
Yeah, that's great. Great information, Stacy. And so, kind of the flip side of that question is, why do you think people get discouraged when they're trying to complete goals, achieve goals or resolutions?
Honestly, I think that's just human nature because we are so much, especially now, a population of instant gratification. And so when things do not come quickly, we can sometimes get very, very frustrated. And I think that can be, it's just where we are in our world right now. I mean, we have access to information at our fingertips. I mean, we even have to be behind a computer. You have it on your cell phone. We're so used to Amazon shipping something to us in, at least 2 days. If it takes longer than 2 days, I don't know about you. I go, what's going on? I'm getting upset. Well, I want my package. So I think a lot of that frustration and discouragement a lot of times really comes with where we are as a society right now. And so I think sometimes we even set unrealistic goals for ourselves. We hold ourselves at such high expectations and we have these giant dreams of what we want to accomplish. And so sometimes we start out with a goal that's just too big to accomplish in a month or a year. And you have to kind of think about making sure you don't set those unrealistic expectations on yourself. And because that will just set you up for discouragement from the very beginning. I think you also have to think about who we are as humans, and we have our fear of failure. And so sometimes we never even launch. We never even get on the path to the goal. We have this goal, but we never really set sail with it because we're scared of failure. Maybe we've tried before and it didn't work, or maybe we just are too nervous to even put ourselves out there or even try something and, obtain that goal that might be a reach goal. I think that those self-doubts really sneak in and can our, hijack us before we even try something. And then sometimes I think the lack of progress or the ability to measure those incremental success, those moments of getting to that first step. I think sometimes we forget to celebrate the small wins.
Yeah.
And that too can become very frustrating. And that can be sometimes difficult. And we're just like, give up. I can't do this. And then, I think there's also things where we have to get ourselves grace because sometimes there's things without our control. There's things that are going to happen that you absolutely cannot control at all. That could be a setback. And so I think that setback and should be seen as something, and absorbed in a way that you really put some thought into it and understand this isn't me. This is something that happened. And, it doesn't mean I cannot reach my ultimate goal. It just means maybe not right now. And I think of even our friends out west in North Carolina that were impacted by Hurricane Helene. And I think about students that may had this like, I am going to start college. I'm going to earn this credential in 2024. And that impact may have derailed that goal. Maybe they're not going to graduate on time. Maybe they've had to stop going to school for the moment. But that's not a failure. Something happened that was catastrophic and outside of your control. And so I think you have to say, you know what, I've got to regroup and rethink, and my energy needs to be put somewhere else right now. So now it's like, okay, I'm going to come back to this goal. It's not over. I just got to run back to it. And so I think that's important to keep in mind as you're setting goals and as things happen and you might get discouraged or don't have the follow through. It's not you. Sometimes things happen and you just have to persevere.
Mhm. And I appreciate the so I've been here at Forsyth Tech for over 13 years now, just over 13 years. I was hired in December of 2011, and I've made a lot of mistakes. If anyone out there has worked with me very closely, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I am so grateful for the grace extended by Forsyth Tech and for Dr. Spriggs' allowance to, as her phrase is, fail forward. Like, it's more important to try something new. Even if it doesn't work out, we can always, revise, than it is to just not try a thing. And so that gives a real safety net for those, for those
It does.
fears. Yeah.
And you know what? It's one of those things. You're never going to move forward if you're fearing failure. So it's important to have that culture, but it's externally and internally is having that space and the grace to go, we're gonna make a decision and move forward.
Yes.
And we're gonna go after this reach goal. Maybe it didn't quite work out, but you know what? Did you move the needle a little bit? Then
Sure.
you did have a success. Maybe you didn't reach your overarching goal. Let's just say you had decided and this academic year you're going to increase course success in your area by 5%. And let's say you get to the spring and you're like, I'm at 4%. Well, you didn't fail because 4% of your students, of additional students, finished your class successfully. That's not a failure. You did fantastic. On the flip side, I'm going to say also consider the fact that what if you hit that 5% mark at the end of fall? What are you going to do? Are you going to stop?
Right.
No, you're not going to stop. You're going to set yourself a new goal and keep going, keep striving. And I think that's what's really important.
Because in either case, you have some evidence that your interventions are working.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's the important thing. Awesome. So, what is talk to us a little bit about goal setting theory and like SMART goals. I think our HR talked to us about SMART goals, but what is it? Give us a little deeper dive into that, if you will.
So yeah, because I technically do a lot with SMART goals. Our everybody has goals for the year. You put those goals in, you talk to your supervisor about them, making sure they're aligned to the overarching mission and goals of our college, that strategic plan, and making sure that we're moving the needle and we're being able or being in here to help students and in the community to help our students and our fellow community members. But I think with SMART goals, one of the things that I often see as a leader is sometimes we don't put something down that we can measure. And that can be hard. And so specifically with SMART goals, which is why we focus so heavily on them, is that we're looking at a specific goal, a specific task. You know, what are you doing? Where are you going? Like, what is it you're trying to accomplish? And I think, the S in SMART is that, are you able to be specific and know where you want to go? You then, you have to think from the standpoint, is it measurable? If you cannot measure it, how do you know you reached your goal? How do you know you accomplished it? You know, I, that is one of the pieces I think sometimes gets complicated. We do a lot of work, and sometimes you got to think about and analyze how you're going to measure it. And that can be a challenge. I don't know about you, Sharilyn, but sometimes I'm like, okay, we need to do this. How do we measure this? How do we measure it? And then, of course, it has to be achievable. And that's one of the pieces that sometimes gets called up, even in our personal lives. If we set a goal that's just like, it's just not possible to reach, or certainly not to reach in the timeline that you may have connected to it. I think that you have to be careful and be realistic with the challenge that you might be trying to address. I go back to achievable. Let's say, it's a New Year's resolution and you decided that you were going to lose weight. Many Americans, that's their, they're going to get healthy. They're going to exercise. They want to lose weight in the new year. Well, if you set a weight goal, that's just not realistic to hit. And maybe the next 6 months, are you gonna, how you even feel about that if you don't see the results? And then, of course, it has to be relevant. It has to align with the broader goals, the broader aspirations, your aspirations. And so, is it relevant? Is it going to connect you to the place you want to go, where you want to end up? And then, of course, it's got to have a timeline to it. It's got to have an end date, a goal. Otherwise, it could drag on forever. And then you're not really addressing what it is that you want to address. It's like, I want increased student success. Great. How are you going to do it? What measurement are you putting in place? Obviously that would be relevant as a member of his college. What and how are you going to do it? And what time frame? If you say you're going to increase student success and you increase student success over the 30 years you might be in your position, did you move it 1% in 30 years?
Right.
Is that really where you want to go? Is that what you're hoping for? Or are you hoping for something grander and larger? And so I think that's really important. I think it's, I work with my team, as you know, Sharilyn, and I'm always like, okay, your goal has to be realistic, has to connect to our tasks. It has to connect to our strategic plan and the pillars, because we are all, as a college, moving in one direction. And so we are part of that larger movement. So how do we get there? Where are we going? And I'm always about, all right, how are you doing it? And then how are you going to measure it? And, our goals are set for a year. But I do think areas can have goals that may last more than a year. That's certainly okay.
Sure.
And so I think you just have to be, that goes back to the realistic or Is it achievable? Can you do it? So I really think it's important when you create that goal for yourself, make sure you create something that is really something that's not going to frustrate you. Um, and I think one of the keys to that is certainly using the SMART method to help you craft that goal.
Right. And you've always been helpful, so very helpful to me on that, using the SMART goal. I'm a big ideas person, I might have a goal. I just want everyone to be happy. That's which is a very nice fairy tale. Sure.
Yeah.
It might not be a SMART goal. And I often I think it's Einstein who is quoted with not everything that matters is measured, and not everything that is measured matters. And so, which is kind of a clever saying, but using that SMART strategy, helps me kind of focus and hone in on my just can everybody be happy kind of goal.
Which is a great goal.
Also out of my control.
It is, but you gotta bring it in a little.
Yes, and you do a very good job of graciously reining me and the team in. So how can people stay accountable then, speaking of that? How can we be accountable and motivated with the goals we set?
That is one of those things that I think it's gonna be a little bit individual. In it because it's gonna be a little bit of what motivates you. But I do think it's often wise to break things down into chunks, to smaller pieces. So you have some wins along the way. If you have this big overarching goal and you're not kind of measuring it as you go and you haven't broken it down into, I want to accomplish this by, month 3, and then I'm going to accomplish this by month 6, and so on. I think you can get bogged down. And so I think really looking at setting those kind of milestones and chunking your goal into pieces is one way to really keep motivated. Uh, the other thing is, here at Forsyth Tech, we have software we write our goals down. But if it's a personal goal, write it down. Put it somewhere where you're gonna see it. You're gonna stare at it. Again, I go back to are you trying to get healthy in 2025? If you write that down on a sticky note and put it on your monitor, even at work, to remind yourself to get up and walk around a little bit during the day, that's important. And I think, having that, even having a work buddy to help you with it and remind you and keep you on track can definitely, help with that and keep you motivated. If one of your colleagues is reminding you, okay, you haven't got up and walked around in like 2 hours, you need to get up and move. And helping to keep you on track, that's a wonderful way to not only keep you on track, but you're connecting and having with a colleague, a friend, and they're part of your journey, which can also be very a great thing to have someone on the journey with you and keeping you on track. You know, I think you also have to allow yourself you've got to allow time for tracking progress. Again, Forsyth Tech has a great structure for that. We have software that reminds us it's time. You need to check in. You need to check on these goals. And it helps even with supervisors, even myself, like, hey, reminder, you need to do this check-in. And so I think that is great here, but I think also at home, if it's a personal goal, having a little check-in, maybe a reminder on your phone to go, okay, here's, take some time, reflect on what it is you're trying to reach. And, are you on track? Are you off track? And if you're off track, do we need to adjust? Are there timetables that need to be reflected on? I think that's important. But celebrate progress. Truly celebrate progress, because I think that's also motivational too. If you hit the smaller milestones along the way and you're celebrating it, then you are going to feel like you're winning as you go. It's not something that's like, well, I have to wait until, the end of the year, or I'll have to wait until our annual review period. I don't think we should wait for that. Celebrate those wins along the way. And if you hit your goal before your your timeline, then it's obvious that to me that you should celebrate that too. As you know, as a supervisor, I'm gonna go, okay, so you've already accomplished this. What can you accomplish in the next few months?
Right.
Yeah. What that's me. That's who I am.
Yeah.
Because I'm always gonna push my team. But you should certainly, and we should certainly celebrate those successes along the way.
Yes, thank you so much. Great. All good and motivating uh you know, little gold nuggets as we embark on this year. So one more thing, Stacy. What are some pieces of advice you might give someone who is discouraged about setting or accomplishing goals this year?
I think it's important to remind ourselves that and others. And so, remind ourselves, remind our friends, our family, our colleagues, that goals are that, just goals. They're things you're trying to reach. But they also should not add an overwhelming amount of stress or anxiety in your life. There are things you would like to accomplish, but if you have set a goal that might be unrealistic, or there's been an external factor that is derailing you or has derailed you in the past, I think that focus of maybe this isn't the goal you need at the moment. Maybe you need to step back and reframe that goal. But if you're just getting off on your journey, um, I think some of it that to stay on, to have that energy, to get on the journey to reaching that goal. I think you have to remember to make sure it's connected to your why, that it is important. If you just arbitrarily pick a goal that's not connected to you, that if you don't really buy into the goal you've set, you're probably right. You're not going to be motivated, and you're probably not going to accomplish it. So I think it's really important from the very start. Make sure it connects to you and your why and your reasons for wanting to do this goal. And I think that is a very important conversation to have with a supervisor as well. So if your supervisor at Versailles Tag suggests a goal that you're like, you know what, this goal just doesn't connect. I don't, it just doesn't give me the feels, I guess you could say. But I want I want to achieve. Maybe think about with your super, how to reframe that goal, how to end up with the same outcome, but maybe in a different way. And so I think that's very important that you work with your leadership to find the right goal for you, that you can connect with on a very real and very emotional level, so that you don't fall off before you even start. I think we also have to remember to focus on the progress. Again, focus on the incremental wins.
Yeah.
And give yourself grace. I think you got to give yourself grace. To understand that maybe 1 month you fall off of the goal, but keep going. The next month might be better. Sometimes we hit plateaus with things and we get frustrated, but don't stop. Keep going, keep pushing, because ultimately you will get there. There might be times when you get sidetracked. There might be times when things just aren't going your way and you're getting frustrated, but don't give up, because giving up is going to mean you never reach that goal. And so and my other piece of advice, my other big piece of advice is get a buddy, get a colleague, get a friend, family member to be with you, to go along with you and support you. It's a lot easier if you have a friend at work that's working towards a similar goal and you're holding each other accountable. It's a lot easier at home if you're like, I'm going to get more walking and more steps in, and you've got a buddy that's um, willing to either get those steps in with you or is willing to at least text you or call you and say, hey, how many steps do you have to take? And making that giving you that energy to go, oh, I need a few more steps to reach my goal today. And I think that's really where it gets important. And but keep going. Giving up, you're never gonna get there. So keep going. You don't want to get stopped.
Thank you so much for all of this information, Stacy. I know I consider myself um, pretty lucky to have a supportive supervisor like you. I could attest to all of our listeners out here that the things that Stacy has shared with us today is her actual way of being, and it's great to have a supervisor. It's important to be able to have that trust relationship that I can come back and say, "Hey, this isn't. How can we reframe this?" or relook at this so that we're still accomplishing as you said, the goals of the college and the outcome, um, but in ways that I can kind of connect those dots for myself. And ironically, as you were just finishing up, my watch told me it was time to stand. So
See, maybe I'll watch to do your buddy. If that was for you, that's fine too. You gotta find what works for you.
that's true, but I'm a people person, so I'll use my watch as a reminder, but someone that for accountability. But this has been a really great and enlightening session, everyone. Again, Happy New Year. I hope that you will take into consideration these ideas as you set your goals and maybe your personal New Year's resolutions. So thank you for joining us again on this episode of TED Talk. Tune in next time for more insights, discussions, and inspirations in the world of higher education. But until then, keep leading and keep learning.
Thank you for having me, Sharon.
Thank you.